Today, live review of Maker's Mark 101 proof limited release. This is a Centauri Global Spirits product, and they own Jim Beam, Bamore, Alberta Premium, Lafroig, Canadian Club. These are all Centauri Global Spirits products. This is Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey at 50.5% ABV or 101 proof. It is non-chill filtered, and it has to be natural color because we're talking about Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. The mash bill that they use here is 70% corn, 16% soft red winter wheat, and 14% malted barley. This is aged approximately 6 years. It used to be that this 101 proof was a distillery exclusive. Then it was a travel retail exclusive for some amount of time. And now you can just pretty much get these absolutely everywhere. So I don't know. Despite the fact that this says limited release on it, it is very clearly not very limited. It is on every store shelf I think I've ever seen right now. Even though originally it was very exclusive, it's not very exclusive at this time. So, you know, we'll see. We'll see what it tastes like. As far as I know, this is like pretty much just your regular Maker's Mark off-proofed a little bit, but also the barrels selected for this whiskey are supposed to be a little higher quality. I don't know. We'll give her a shot and see. Pretty standard, similar bottle going on here. The letters are in gold though, instead of like that white label. But everything else is about what you'd expect. And again, we're going to rate this out of 100, 25 points for aroma, 25 points for palate, 25 points for finish, 10 for the texture, and 15 for my personal experience, which the last time I drank this was bad. I'm not sure what that says. And the myth about Maker's Mark is that this is supposedly Pappy Van Winkle's recipe. So maybe that's why it's so popular. Even though it's not even the same company. All right. Send you spinning. One of the things I noticed is with an empty box and a full bottle on one side, this thing kind of like jerks around a little bit because it's like uneven. I wonder if I should put the bottle on there and just screw the box. We could just put the box here and put the bottle in the middle. I don't know. You think the light will make much of a difference? Oh, shit. Barely. All right. There's your natural Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey color at 101 proof here. I'd say it's pretty typical color. I don't know. Feels like all of these like roughly 5 to 7 year old bourbons roughly look this color, and you'd expect so. Same climate, same kind of barrel, same rough amount of years aged. So you end up with a color roughly like this. I guess it depends somewhat if it's barrel proof or not. Some of the like barrel proof offerings do seem to come across a little darker, but this is probably still quite a bit darker than Wild Turkey 101, despite being the same proof and roughly the same age. Never seen you less excited to drink a spirit. Part of it is because I know the last time I drank this, I did not like it. I actually actively didn't want to finish it. And at the time, I thought it was Lot 40 Dark Oak. So Um, yeah. May not be a glowing review. We'll see. Sorry for all the Maker's Mark fans out there. I'm going to take a quick look in our whiskey opus and see if it tells me anything different while we're resting this for a minute. Of course, the iconic red wax top. Diageo. Man, how did I miss M? This is in all kinds of weird orders. See, it says Michter's. Michter's to... Oh, the way this is ordered is kind of wonky. I don't understand how this is ordered. Is this under, like, some other name? It's ordered in a weird way. See, like, there's Woodford, and then there's Old Forester. Like, I guess it's ordered by brand somewhat. Like, this says Brown-Forman up here. So it's like... It's ordered by brand. So Maker's Mark is under Jim Beam. Because it is a Jim Beam product, like, at the end of the day. Interesting. We'll read the whiskey tales here about the Maker's Mark. An individual approach. It may be a big distillery these days, but Maker's Mark still does things a little differently to its competitors. The grain is ground on a mill that uses a roller system rather than a hammer system because the distillery believes that the heat from hammering makes for a more bitter taste. Also, the barrels are rotated in the warehouse for consistency, important for a bourbon that uses relatively few barrels in each batch and should not vary enormously in taste, something hard to avoid in Kentucky because of the huge temperature variations in the large multi-floored warehouses. So they do a barrel rotation. I don't wonder how that works because I guess when they say barrels are rotated in the warehouse, that means they just change where they're physically located. They don't like rotate the barrel around. That wouldn't make sense. So they just like move the barrels around the warehouse. They need like a track, maybe. I'm not sure about this hammer versus roller mill. That probably doesn't make much difference. Anyway. One common note for this particular brand is cherry. A cherry character. It's a very common note on Maker's Mark. Probably I'll get it. But, yeah. I'll dive in here in a second. I just hope it's not so spicy, man. Last time we drank this, it was so overspiced to me. Like, to the point that it was unfortunate. Yeah, initially, very cherry, very oaky, very spicy. There's a good sweet character in there, though. Cherries and syrup, sort of thing. Like if you had a very cherry fruit cup with oak and spice. A very spiced cherry fruit cup. It's all going to be on the taste, though. It's all going to be on the palate. But I feel like the palate's overspiced. Not much else there. Not getting like a big fat brown sugar caramel thing at this point. But I know for me personally, that tends to come later in the experience. I know they say that like every time, but for me, it's like you have to acclimate that first set of notes, and then all the like underlying sweetnesses kind of start to present themselves. I'm actually getting something that I would call cherry cola, which is a pleasant note. Cherry cola, spiciness, some oak character. Yeah, I like that. Like, it's more of a cherry cola than it is like a cherry fruit. I think I would rather say it's not cherry, it's cherry cola. Like artificial sweet cherry note. All right, let's brace ourselves for this potentially unwanted spice bomb. Or maybe it's fine. Maybe I had spice all over the palate that day. I don't know. Could happen. Cheers. The like back palate early finish on this is like so spicy. The worst part is the like arrival mid palate is actually pretty good. It's actually pretty like cherry cola. You get some like a little bit of toffee in there. You get a little bit of a buttery note. Some oak is present. And then like you go to swallow and it's like, you sure you missed the cinnamon, bitch? And then you get slapped with like fucking baking spice right in the face. And it's like so jarring. It's like there's a spike in the intensity of flavor right when you go to swallow, and it's like all baking spice. And then I just didn't register whatever else was on the finish. That just seems what it's going on. Like I don't get it, man. There's that weird kind of weird herbal weedy note. Oh man, there's that note again. There's a note in here that I think it's a wheat note, but when I drank this blind, I thought that it was rye because there's like a weird, slightly herbal thing in the nose, especially. That is not on other weeders. It's not on the Heaven Hill weeders that we've tried. It's not on the Weller that we tried. It's like a weird sort of herbal kind of note. Not that a little bit the larceny. Do you mean like the like herbal kind of note? Because I didn't get it on the larceny barrel proof. But if you mean like the spice part, I could see it. But there's something in here that I think I'm identifying as some kind of wheat note. And it comes across like a little herbal. And I think it's a Maker's Mark thing. I really do. I'm starting to think it's a Maker's Mark thing because the other weeders I've had don't have this note, and it kind of really reminds me of rye. But there's no rye in this mash bill, zero. There's just soft red winter wheat, and I don't know if like the wheats Maker's Mark uses are slightly different than the wheats that Weller and Larceny are using. But the best way I can describe this note to you is like as if the wheat was like not ripe yet and it was green, but it still kind of smells like a wheat note. And I'm thinking it's some kind of thing to do with like the specific kind of wheat they're using and the barrel interacting in some kind of way that kind of makes it seem like herbal spicy. I don't know, and maybe I'm just doing a terrible job of describing this particular note, but the fact that I'm getting it in here again means that the fact that I got it before is like I'm not crazy. Like there is some kind of weird herbal thing going on in here that is not rye related, obviously. So I'm gonna have to try to like hone in on what that is in particular for my personal taste. Phantom Wolf, how's it going? Appreciate you dropping in. We're doing a live review of the Maker's Mark 101 Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. We do some whiskey slash other spirits related content every day on this channel around this time. So if you're into that, you're in the right place. I do bourbon, scotch, Canadian whiskey. We do some rums. I have some cognac. We got all kinds of stuff. And the rest of the time we play video games. If you're into that too. I would assume so. You're on this website. Alright, I gotta take another sip of this. Yeah, kind of like cherry cola, spicy, oaky. Palate was actually kind of nice. It had some of that cherry cola in it. It had some like toffee in it. Some oak. But then like near the back palate somewhere, it just really like wants to give you a spice bomb. Yeah, it really spikes. It really just, right when you go to swallow, on the back of the tongue, it just turns the spice up to 11. Right when you go into the finish. Finish is spicy, oaky. Oak is lingering. Not terribly long. Call this like medium length finish. Like medium. Finish is not terribly impressing me right now. It's like some spice in there, and it's oaky. Doesn't last particularly long. Don't get much else. Like the mug. This one, yeah. My wife enjoys oddities, so I have some mugs that are eccentric, we'll say. Don't make me get out the goat skull. Get out the goat skull again. Not much development on the nose here. It's coming across a little bit sweeter, but I'm kind of like good with like wrapping that into like the idea of a cherry cola. There is like a clear kind of a caramel developing though. The what? The carved goat skull. What do you mean, what? I was clear. Carved goat skull. Like a real one. It's pretty sweet. Yeah, it is pretty sweet. I don't mean the whiskey, but... damn you, Mark. Damn you, Mark. I don't know what you said, though. Those are words in a language. We speak English here, though. Yeah, all cherry cola, some caramel developing, weird herbal wheat related note, I think. Some spiciness, oaks in there. I still got some of that good cherry cola note. Some oak and spice in there, some toffee. When you go to swallow, again, spice up to 11. Spice on the finish. Some good oak lingers. There is some like brown sugar kind of sweetness developing on the finish too. It's not as bad. It's not as bad as when I blinded it. Okay, it's not as bad. But the spice component on the back palate of this is not my favorite. It is not a positive. And it's just because it just like kicks out of nowhere. It's like it goes, oh, this is nice and pleasant bourbon, and then whoosh, and then you get some spice in the face. And that's not great. You know, it's like, how would you call that? Unbalanced? Almost feels unbalanced. Like it'd be good if it like you had those bourbon characters on the palate, and then you like transitioned into like a sort of smooth spicy element into the finish. But it like spikes. It's not a pleasant smooth transition. It just goes whoosh. It gives you a good slap. Like that's not a smooth ride, we'll say. So I don't know. I don't know about that part. Everything else is like pretty good. Some of those sweet notes are developing. Not getting as much as that weird kind of herbal wheat thing. I wish I had a better way to describe that. Because to me, it comes across like green. And I don't know, that's like a stupid way to put it, but it's like, it comes across in like a green manner. Like like wheat that's not ready to be harvested or something.
Yes. Yes.
All right. We're going to give this another one more sip here, and then we'll look at some numbers. I'm feeling pretty good. It's not developing that much. I didn't wait a whole hour to assess it a third time.
You know that sometimes dunk
A big dunk.
of wax.
A big dunk.
Yeah, did that like when they're wax dip. Where's Mark? For some reason, I'm getting whiskey content in all my stuff. But when they're doing the wax dip for that, they do it a certain way to get a certain amount. But every so many bottles, like I don't know what it is, they do a great big one. Those are supposed to be like, look for them. People.
Oh, people look for Maker's Marks that are overly waxed?
Yeah.
Have you guys heard of that? I've never heard of that.
That's why when I saw that one, I thought it might be that one because one side was huge. But it's like they literally dunk it down to the bottom.
Huh.
I'm not making it up.
I've never seen a super waxed Maker's Mark.
It was like it was footage of them doing it, and the woman like dunks it right in. And...
You sure that wasn't one where you do your own?
No.
At
It
the
was a
distillery?
factory line.
At the distillery, I think you can wax your own bottle. I think that's what you can do.
That big waxed one.
You mean like this? I don't know why it's on its side, but
They were taking a video of it because they don't do it that often. So this woman was gonna do it, and it goes in the Maker's Mark box. And
well, the thing is most Maker's Marks don't come in a box.
or maybe it didn't go in. They were putting it in a big box of a bunch of them.
They put it in a case, you mean?
I don't know. I was gonna tell you about it, but I assumed it was information you already knew.
No, I've never heard that before. The image that I have, I'll show you the image I have since we're talking about this. Is this here? I don't know why the picture is like this. How many things you trying today? Usually we just do one, but you can always spend bits to make me talk about more whiskey. I'll do that. I'll get paid to talk about it. But it's like all over the top of it. You know what I mean? Like normally you don't get this much wax, right? So I don't know
Be cool.
how often or how regular this is. This is in particular. This is a 1 liter. This is a 1 liter bottle though of the basic Makers. So it's a slightly bigger offering, but I've never seen it dunked like that before. I've never seen that. Apparently, Mom got some YouTube content that says that that's a thing that they do, and it's rare to find them, but they're doing a bad job of advertising these unique bottles because I have never heard of it. I don't know. Yeah, normally we just do 1 hour of spirits related content, then we play games the rest of the time. That being said, if you want to see any particular bottle in my collection, or if you want me to talk about, I'm down to talk about whiskey as much as possible, honestly. But there's like all of the spirits that are currently available to me right now. So if you want to see any spirits in particular, that's the big list. I'm down to get out any bottle there. All right, so let's talk about the aroma real quick. Actually, let me take one more sip, and then we'll talk about the aroma. I feel like I'm acclimating to that spice slap. We're getting there with it. don't care for too much for whiskey. I like rum though. Yeah, I don't have too many rums available to me in my market, but we kind of have some of the kind of baseline barrel aged stuff. So I got some El Dorado. I got some Appleton Estate. What else do we have? We have the 10-year-old Bacardi thing. What else is there? We have a Plantation XO 20th anniversary, which is that's not a great bottle. I don't know of any other rums I have off the top of my head. But rum is definitely something I'm interested in pursuing more of. It's just a matter of all kinds of different bottles competing for your dollar, right? So I definitely am interested in the idea of some of the unaged rums that have wild yeast components. I would love to try some of those, but they basically don't exist where I am. I would have to try to order them from Alberta. So that's always the struggle with rum for me. Rum and tequila, brandy / cognac. I just don't have a lot of readily accessible products near me. They just don't stock them up here. Pretty much what they stock up here is scotch and bourbon. Even the Canadian whiskey section is pretty small compared to the scotch and bourbon section. So that being said, of all the spirits I've tried, personally I prefer scotch. I'm a scotch guy, but I just love exploring spirits in general. I'll try anything. It's just a matter of where I can put dollars. Deanston 9-year-old brandy cask finished. We haven't opened that one yet. That's actually one of the few unopened bottles that I have. And I haven't marked on there that one's not open, but I have not tried it yet. It's one of the 7 bottles that are still sealed. So this is it right here. So I'd be down to crack it. But typically what we do is there's 3 ways that we crack these. On Wednesdays, I will do a fresh crack bottle. I'll put up a poll. We'll put up all the bottles I have that are unopened that I've never tried before in the poll, and we vote, and then I'll crack one every Wednesday. For 25,000 channel points, I'll also crack a bottle. And then also, if you want to buy a dram for bits out of the bottle, I will also crack it if you do that. So I couldn't tell you because I've never had it, but I'm so interested in trying it. It's cask strength. And again, distilled in 2008 and bottled 9 years after. So this is actually a 2017 bottle. Yeah. I'll let you know when I try it. How about that? I try not to. I can't just crack everything I buy because then we wouldn't have any fresh cracks to do. I won't have so much money. We've got to try to keep things within budget, roughly. Okay. So let's talk about the aroma at a 25 on this. I'm actually quite enjoying the particular aromas on this right now. It's not like cherry fruit. The fact that it's coming across to me as a cherry cola note is way more interesting than the typical cherry notes you get on bourbons. I'm enjoying the cherry cola aspect of it. And then the rest is pretty typical of what you get from bourbon. You're getting some of that caramel, some oakiness is in there, some spicy character is in there. We had a brief showing of some kind of green wheat related note, which is my second time getting that off of this. What's your favorite one of all my bottles? Oh, that's really hard. But if you want some actual data, if you pop into my Discord channel, my Discord server, there is a section in there that displays all of my reviewed whiskeys and their score, and there is a list of all my whiskeys and what I've rated them in order. So it's hard to pick, but The best answer you'll probably get is if you consult my whiskeys I've already reviewed, and this one will be added to that list momentarily. It's not my favorite nose though. I like the cherry cola note, but that's like it. Let's give it. Give it 15. 15 on aroma. Boom, there it is. All right, let's hit the palate. And again, I actually like the palate quite a lot. The palate of this is actually pretty tasty. It's the like spicy, spiky part that I don't like. Around entry, you do get some of that like cherry cola note. There's some kind of like toffee syrup level sweetness in there. You get some oak and light spices near the back of the tongue. And then obviously when you swallow on the back palate, there's a lot of spice. Pretty spicy back there. I'm gonna give the palate 18. Give the palate 18 out of 25. All right, now we're gonna go to the finish, which the finish on this so far has not been very great. Doesn't have that great of a length. Mostly spicy and oaky. Does have kind of like a brown sugar sweet component. But that's about it. Right out the gate, spicy. Some of that sweetness is in there. Oak arrives. Kind of that oak and spice linger. Not much else there. Chef Old Wolf, how's it going? Thanks for popping in. Yeah, we're almost there. We're almost to 2025. It went so fast, didn't it? It was like October, and then it was Christmas, and then here we are. I'm gonna get older. Everyone's gonna get older, but everyone's also going to get wiser. That's what's important. '25 to '29 will be a wild ride. In what way? In what way will it be a wild ride? You're not wrong, but what in particular makes you say that? Finish is like pretty mid, man. 14. Call it 14. All right, out of 10, we're talking about the texture, which I haven't put much thought into. Plead the fifth on that question. You're going to incriminate yourself, are you? On Twitch TV? Okay. I try not to get too political on here, so I won't comment either. How about that? That being said, I'm in Canada, though. It has nothing to do with Donald Trump. It might have something to do with politics, though. All right. Let's hit the texture here. Texture's fine. Call it a 5. 5 out of 10. Not commenting on politics? I appreciate you doing so. It's hard not to comment sometimes, but it's the best, I think, for everyone to get along in a neutral space that we don't divide ourselves unnecessarily. We're stronger united. Prefer Wild Turkey 101 or Wild Turkey Small Batch? What is Wild Turkey Small Batch? I have a bottle of 101 with me. This Maker's Mark 101 is just what happened to come up for review. I have a Wild Turkey 101 and I have a Wild Turkey Rare Breed. Is what I have in the physical, in the flesh. But I've never heard of the Small Batch. Is that the one that's like 80 proof? I'm not sure. Having a friend over and they were into whiskey like I am. Oh. If they were the kind of person that was into whiskey like me, and they were at the same, we'll say, appreciate it in the same ways as I do, and like the same notes that I do, the easiest one I would hit, especially considering this person is my friend. Here we have the Lafroig Carchis 2024 annual release, cask favorites 10-year-old Lafroig Isla single malt Scotch whiskey. This is an annual release from Lafroig. That is, if you don't know about Isla whiskeys, basically they're smoked with peat. They have strong notes of smoke, wood smoke, barbecue, iodine, bog sludge, sometimes tar, earth, medicinal characters. And they're quite challenging, but you come to love the smoke eventually, in my experience. Eventually, people always come to love the smoke eventually. But this one in particular is aged 10 years in ex-bourbon or in quarter casks, which are little small barrels. Then it is finished in Pedro Jimenez, which is a very deep, rich, thick sherry. And that gives it like a jammy, plummy sweetness intermingled with some of those smoke, iodine, earthy, peaty notes. But specifically the Carchis, as you see here, this is made to enjoy with friends. That's the whole idea. For, you know, if you're my friend, I'd rather share my best whiskeys with you. This is the idea with the Carchis. So we try to share this on stream with you guys, my friends. We had it when I brought it home. We had it on Christmas Eve. We had it, and we'll have it again on New Year's. This is just a lovely whiskey, honestly. You get all of the island notes firing on all cylinders, mixed with like a nice, sweet, plummy, jammy sweetness right in the mid palate, and then you go into those like more thick, bitter, earthy island notes right after in a kind of a roller coaster. So this is what I would share with a friend of the same taste as me, because I think this is delicious. Depends on the distillery. Kilchoman is very different to Laphroaig or Ardbeg, and they are to Bruichladdich. Yeah, so to be clear, couldn't find that bottle. Yeah, again, this one sold out at the festival. I think people are getting clued in that this is really good. I think it's going to disappear. Yeah, so here's the thing about Kilchoman. So it depends on what Kilchoman release we're talking about. So Kilchoman is a relatively new distillery. A lot of their distillates are younger, like they're less than 8 years old. If you're talking about the Kilchoman Islay, 100% Islay barley, that's a completely different whiskey than Kilchoman's Mackyer Bay, Sanag, Loch Gorm, or their other offerings. That's like the main thing that I found. I have this Kilchoman batch strength. It's got a bunch of different barrels in it. But what I found with this one is you can tell it's younger. It's a little bit more vibrant, more brash, more up in your face. Sanag is the sherried one. Yeah, so Sanag is made with sherried hogsheads, not sherried butts, but sherried hogsheads. So it does get a good sherry impact. But they're using a smaller barrel. They're not using a sherry butt. But one thing to remember is all of the whiskeys made by Kilchoman that are not their 100% Islay barley release, the 100% Islay barley release, that is their own barley they grew on their farm. All these other ones are the same commercial malts from Port Ellen that Ardbeg uses, that Laphroaig uses, that Lagavulin uses. It's all the same peated malt. So in that way, the peat character is about the same. More into bourbon cask or cognac cask. Yeah, I don't have too many things that are cognac cask. I do have a couple rums that have cognac cask in them because obviously Plantation are going to use their Ferrand casks. I do have the Writer's Tears. We have a Writer's Tears double oak that has a good cognac essence to it. I haven't had too many things that are like, say, smoked, like peat smoked that have cognac involved though. But definitely if you have bourbon cask, if we're talking about Islay, bourbon casks are going to be much more closer to that smoky distillate. CC01, yeah, I haven't had that one. I do have access to the PMC 01, that's just a Pomerol cask, but I don't actually physically have it. It's just available in my market. A lot of Bruichladdich stuff isn't available near me. I get smatterings here and there of it. But yeah, like Ardbeg and Laphroaig are different than Bruichladdich. Bruichladdich peat does not come from Port Ellen like Kilchoman's or Laphroaig or Ardbeg's. Bruichladdich peat comes from the main highlands, so they're going to have a different character for sure. I've tried whiskeys like Jack and just never really cared for them, so if someone who wasn't found one, they want to try to find one, so if you want to try a whiskey, how do you pronounce Carchess? Carchess. Carchess. Say the word car, and then say the word chess. Carchess. Roughly. It's not Cardias, as you might think. It's Carchess. Carchess. So what you probably want, Anton, what you probably want to look at is kind of what style of whiskey you're interested in, right? So you have bourbon, which bourbon has to be matured in a new charred oak barrel. So you're going to have flavors of cherry, brown sugar, oak, spice. These are very common. So if you want something that is in that brown sugar, caramel, oak, spice kind of realm, then you're looking at trying bourbon. But if you want a entirely different experience, you can go to Scotch and get something that's got like orchard fruits, honey, still similar spice note, and that's kind of like your typical bourbon cask Scotch has got that orchard fruit honey kind of realm. But you can also go to a sherried Scotch, which is something like dried fruits, plums, raisins, and then has like kind of darker notes in the back end, like chocolate, leather, darker spices, darker toffee, this sort of thing. So it kind of depends. Like there's a world. That's what's so exciting about whiskey is there's a world to try. Every distillate's different. Every barrel does a certain number on each distillate. So you kind of want to think about like, hey, what kind of flavors am I hoping to find? And then, we can make some easy sipping recommendations for that. One of the ones that I'll recommend right off the gate, if you're into Scotch, I'm a Scotch guy, so it's easier for you to do Scotch, but this is my gateway drug, okay? This bottle here is the reason I'm talking to you about whiskey right now. The Glenfiddich 12-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey. I bought this by accident for somebody else and then did not give it to them and instead kept it. And this is the reason why I fell down the rabbit hole is this particular bottle. This is not the same bottle I bought. I drank that whole one and bought a new one. But this is as good as a gateway drug in a Scotch as any. So if you want, this has got some sherry impact, but it's mostly bourbon.
Like, weird.
I don't even know what this is supposed to be.
There. Look at that.
I don't know. I'll sort it out in a bit. Yeah.
Let's go get it.
Yeah, I don't know where they store those. So this is it's got your nice fresh orchard fruit character. It's got some grain kind of malty character in it. Sweet honey. You get some floral notes. But also has a little bit of like that dried fruit thing on the back end. And there's just a good. It's soft. It's easy to drink. And it's just very approachable, has all the typical Scotch flavors. It's like Glenfiddich, your everyday drinker. I don't really have an everyday drinker. Some people use the term daily drinker, and I don't really have a daily drinker. There's kind of a couple reasons for that, but mostly I only consume whiskey, usually on stream. Sometimes I consume it when we're watching a movie or something like that, but not very often. And part of that is just like, obviously, if I'm here with you guys, I don't want to like, we'll say pound back Scotch all the time. We're going to keep ourselves in the realm of moderation here for sure. So every day I do some whiskey related things on stream. And that's kind of the only time I consume whiskey. If I was to like get out a dram just to have something, and I'm just chilling, this would be a great option if that's kind of like what you're thinking. But I don't like have like something I regularly go to all the time because I'm spending my time exploring different spirits on stream with you guys. From the try spirits, I recommend to try a teaspoon to 5 teaspoons of plain alkaline water. Yeah, I mean you can. Water added with whiskey is definitely a preference. I don't personally do it. Not that I haven't experienced it in the past. My personal preference is that it doesn't. Well, say 9 times out of 10, it doesn't make things better for me. That's my opinion. My preference. I know about the idea where certain molecules are attached, and when you add water, it does detach them to reveal them to be experienced. But most of the time for me, it's not optimal to add water. Low grade spirits need much water for beginners to taste differences. Yeah, it depends what you mean by low grade. So that's one of the things, like if you're going out to purchase a spirit, depending on like if you're not abreast with what the options are, I would try to at least get something in the 12-year-old single malt range. So in Canada, you expect to spend about 70 to 80 Canadian dollars for something like a Glenfiddich. I wouldn't go anything cheaper than that, anything like cheap non-age statement, this kind of realm, because the reality of the situation is there is a cap. Not a cap. There's a diminishing returns to how old and how expensive you can go with spirits. But if you get the like cheapest stuff, you're not going to have a great experience. It's going to be sharp and it's going to be not very flavorful, and you're going to be like, "What the fuck's going on here?" That being said, there is an acclimation process to neat alcohol. You do have to get used to the burn, all these kinds of ideas. But I wouldn't. I would still make sure that you're getting a spirit that is like high enough quality that there's something to be enjoyed there. You can go and get a Glenlivet 12-year-old. That is a perfectly respectable spirit. But I wouldn't go get random unnamed 3-year-old Scotch thing that is like $20 or whatever. You know what I mean? So I don't really. Like, for example, if you're going to go for Johnny Walker, I would not get a Johnny Walker Red. That's a little too low on the totem pole for me. Johnny Walker Black is kind of still low on the totem pole, but a completely reasonable option. But yeah, for me, like every day, we spend time talking about random spirits on stream. So, but for me to like go for something on a whim, we'll say something like Glenfiddich 12, or personally, I use the usually to casually sip something. This is one that I go to. I think this is almost empty now too. This is not like a bottom end Lafroig, but it's like it's one of the cheaper Lafroig offerings. I think this is a great value. This is a good value. Gets you all the smoke, all the Isla that you would want for reasonable. Yeah, we're gonna have to review this pretty soon, but I definitely sip this one. I definitely sip this one more than others, kind of ad hoc. First time you come to a Lafroig, you'll get into a new world. Yeah, Isla is a different world. You're gonna experience some challenging flavors with Isla. So definitely, if you go for a smoky Scotch, anything from Lafroig or Ardbeg or Lagavulin, anything from any of these kind of Isla distilleries, you're going to be in for a challenging experience. But it reveals a whole new world of flavor, literally a whole new world. Alright, so let's see if we can kill this Maker's Mark real quick. Lafroig is a whole different category. I don't know if I'd say it was a whole different category, but it is definitely my preferred Isla whiskey. It's my preferred Isla brand. But other people have different opinions. All right, so we talked about our experience with this. I think we already said a little bit that we like the palate. The nose is nice, but we kind of got like an unfortunate spicy kick. Which is not the greatest. McCarthy's 6-year-old? Yeah, so think about McCarthy's. Okay.
And well.
I don't even know what it is. What would have both of our names on it? Okay. Yeah. All right. So this is the McCarthy's Oregon single malt. First American single malt. So this is a single malt American single malt whiskey from Oregon. So what's the wild thing about this? So when you think about American whiskeys, you probably think they're probably going to be pretty bourbon-like. They did something pretty special with this, and they're starting to do this more and more. So in order for it to be American single malt whiskey, it just has to be distilled, aged, and bottled in the United States. It doesn't say that the barley needs to come from the United States. So what barley do you think they used for this? They used peated Scottish barley imported from Scotland. So this is a strong, smoky American single malt. It's just as smoky, just as loud, just as brash as anything from Islay. But there's another unique facet. Everything from McCarthy's is aged in an Oregon oak, a Gariana oak barrel. So this has a mix of new and reused Gariana oak barrels, which are slightly different than your typical oak barrels that you use. So it's got all of the like smoke, peaty notes, iodine, earthiness, but in the middle it's kind of like almost like a bourbon level sweetness in the mid palate, something a little different than you get out of the end of the Islay Scotches. So it's a wild one for sure. It's just as offensive as an Islay Scotch. It's just the same. So the thing about this one is you got to be ready. You got to be ready to get your teeth kicked in by some peat, some smoke, some wood smoke, some iodine kind of flavors, right? And I love this stuff for that reason. It's kind of like an anomaly, if you will. It's different than any other bottle that I have. It's different, and it's very tasty. When you think of Lot 40, it's okay. I have the Lot 40 regular. I have the Lot 40 Dark Oak, which I hate that bottle. I'm going to be clear with that one. I don't like Lot 40 Dark Oak. I think it's terrible. At least the one that I have, the batch of Lot 40 Dark Oak that I have is terrible. It's not great. And I also have a limited release peated quarter cask one. So yeah, this is your standard Lot 40, 100% rye whiskey, 43% alcohol, aged in number 2, not number 4 to be clear, number 2 new charred oak barrels for about 7 years. It's fine. It's pretty good. Like, it's cheap. It's pretty good. It's not bad. It's not anything that's gonna blow you away, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good, pretty economical rye whiskey. And you got this one. So this is the Dark Oak. So this one is basically, so they have this one. They take this one, and then they put it in a number 4 charred barrel for another year. That's pretty much what this Dark Oak one is. And I've heard people say all kinds of great things about this bottle. My personal experience with this bottle is nose is pretty good. All kinds of weird root beer licorice stuff going on. And then the palate is like just all spice. Like really super spicy. Uncomfortably so. Like liquid cinnamon, kind of spicy. So it's not my favorite bottle. There's some good complexities to it. But if you are into that kind of thing, maybe it's for you. It wasn't for me, really. There's a difference in coloration here, too. Obviously, this one's darker. This one also is a higher ABV, though. This one is 48% alcohol. And if you want a funky adventure, there's some of these limited edition Lot 40s. I only have this one. I would have rather had the other ones, too. I also don't have any Lot 40 cask strength, which also might be pretty good. But this is a cask strength Lot 40 that has been finished, does it say how long? 17 months in a first fill peated quarter cask. So my pretty clear assumption is this is basically lot 40 that was finished in a Lafroig quarter cask. And it's a cask strength. It's kind of weird. It's a weird bottle. It's got some weird stuff going on with it. It's not very smoky. It's got like weird grassy notes in it, like weird vegetal grassy kind of character in it. Like it didn't really get smoke out of the peated quarter cask. It kind of just got like peaty notes, earthy, grassy, peaty notes. So it's kind of a different animal. It's a rye, yeah, it's a rye, but I mean, like it's got peat notes in it because it was finished in a peated quarter cask. So it like got extra peat notes. So it's a kind of a different thing. Imperial Talk Scotch, I mostly hear Jameson. So Jameson, if not to be pedantic, but Jameson is an Irish whiskey. It's not a Scotch whiskey. That being said, the Jameson's so there's nothing wrong with Jameson, actually, to be perfectly honest. Jameson is pretty good for the price. Like, it's pretty reasonable. I also killed a bottle of Jameson Stout finish. And I actually gave the palate a pretty good, like the aroma and taste and finish on that thing is non-existent. But the palate's pretty good on the Jameson Stout. But there are other Jameson offerings you can get. And again, we're talking about Irish whiskey. We're talking about triple distilled in Ireland. There's definitely other options from Jameson Title that are so if we talk about the Black Barrel, for example, this one's a pretty economical bottle. I can't remember what's the deal with this one exactly. This one is pretty tasty though. Like if you're gonna go for Jameson and you want something that's like a little more in the like I'm gonna sip this neat in a Glencairn kind of realm, this is a good option. But it's still not gonna break the bank. It's still pretty cheap. So this is a blend of grain whiskeys matured 4 to 6 years in heavily recharred ex-bourbon barrels. And that's mixed with pot still whiskey aged 12 to 16 years in ex-sherry. So it's got some sherry notes going on with it. So it's a mix of grain and pot still. You get a little bit older juice than you would with your regular Jameson. This one's pretty tasty. It's also pretty economical. But again, we're talking about Irish whiskey here. Triple distilled, very smooth on the mouth. And if you go up a notch, you get this one. This is the single pot still. And this one is a mix of 5 different oak casks. This one used to be exclusive to Ireland. You used to only be able to get this in Ireland. But now it's available worldwide, as far as I know. It contains ex-bourbon, ex-sherry, virgin oak. And the virgin oak is of 3 different kinds. So there's virgin European oak, virgin American oak, and virgin Irish oak. I don't know how much of this is Irish oak realistically, but there's something to be said for putting some Irish oak in here. And again, this is more expensive, but we're talking about stuff that is very smooth, very great mouthfeel, triple distilled, easily sipped, we'll say, but doesn't have the same flavors as Scotch, but it is still like more suited to like tasting this in a Glen and getting some flavors out rather than shooting it, right? And out of the same distillery, so Jameson comes from the Middleton distillery, which produces a whole range of different whiskeys. But this is another popular option from Middleton. So this is your Redbreast, 12 years of age. And they have a 12, a 15, a 21, 27, some finished stuff, Tawny Port, Lestau, all kinds of stuff. this comes from the same distillery as Jameson, but it's kind of like a little bit up in quality. This one's almost empty, but don't worry, we have a backup bottle. This uses, so there's 3 different distillates that come out of Middleton. There's a light crisp distillate, there's like a medium body distillate, and then there's like a heavy robust distillate. This is a mix of the single pot still distillates from Middleton that are the light and medium ones. And it's just smooth, nice, pleasant flavors. Nothing too challenging in here. Great mouthfeel. We're talking about single pot still Irish whiskey, which single pot still basically means it's a mix of malted and unmalted barley in the mix. It's not a single malt. There's some unmalted barley present there. This is also a great option. Seen Chivas Regal before? Yeah, so Chivas Regal is a blended scotch. And I'm definitely low on blended scotches. One of the difference between a single malt and a blended scotch is that I haven't opened this one, so I don't know the taste of this one exactly. This was just gifted to me by my brother for Christmas. But the difference between a blended scotch, typically, and a single malt scotch is a lot of the blended scotches allow for you to blend grain whiskey. So this is not 100% malted barley. It has grain whiskeys mixed in. To be Scotch, you don't actually have to be 100% malted barley. You can have single grain Scotch. It's perfectly allowed to use grain to make Scotch. It's just not preferred. Grain tends to not have the same depth of flavor that that malt does. So while blended scotches can be in blends of malt whiskeys, typically they also include some amount of grain whiskey. It's cheaper. So a lot of blended scotch, because they have some amount of grain whiskey in there, tends to lack the same sorts of unique flavors you get out of a single malt, out of a single distillery, where that uniqueness of that particular still can really shine and provide you an interesting experience. Whereas these blends kind of all blend together in a pleasant, smooth manner, but are not like challenging in any direction, and kind of meld together in that way. But yeah, most of Chivas Regal is Strathisla, but they also have other malts in there. And they also have some grains in there. What was my experience with this Maker's Mark anyway? Did we write that down yet? Not really. Out of 15, what would I call my experience with this? Now that we've rambled on about everything. Which is fine for me. I don't mind. Get out of the way, Jameson. We gotta talk about Maker's Mark for a minute. So palate's nice. Nose is nice. Finish, back palate, not great. There's some good notes in the nose and palate that make me want to like this, but there's just a few things that make it a little lacking too. It's kind of a middle of the road experience. I'll give it a 6. 6 out of 15. Glue notes. I don't get a particular glue note out of this bottle, but I can understand if you feel like there's a adhesive character. 15 and 18 and 14. Taste is all subjective at the end of the day, right? So all taste is based off your personal flavor recall. So the notes that I give today on any whiskey are not going to be the same notes you perceive personally, and that's okay. That's totally part of the experience. My flavor recall and life experience with taste is different than yours. What about Blanton's? Yeah, Blanton's is something. First, we're going to total this, though. 58. 58 out of 100. We'll call this Maker's Mark 58 out of 100. And this is what we call a good whiskey. It's good. You know, it's good. It's a good whiskey.